need your help, please.
What can I do for you, little ones?
Two small alien twins begged a giant human for help, and the forest held its breath to hear his answer. In this HFY sci-fi tale, a single choice will echo across worlds before sunrise. The saws had been quiet for an hour when Logan Ward heard the whisper at the edge of the clearing. The frontier moon of Verdun 3 was all violet twilight and drifting pollen, the kind of evening that softened sharp thoughts. He stood 6.5 feet in his boots, shoulders like a doorframe, hands scarred by years of honest work. The big, orange loader beside him ticked as it cooled, sap smell sweet in the air. "Hello?" he called, voice careful so it wouldn't break the spell. "This cut's closed. Come out where I can see you." Two shapes stepped from the tree ferns, thin, silver-limbed, no taller than his waist. Their skin was the green of river glass. Their eyes, lunar white. They were not human children, yet something about the angle of their shoulders, braced and brave at once, brought every protective instinct Logan owned surging to the surface. The twins clasped each other's hands so tightly their knuckles shone. The one on the left, hair like moss in moonlight, spoke first. "Giant human?" she said, her accent lilting like wind through reeds. "Please don't cut the heartwood tonight." Logan set his gloves on the loader's step and crouched to their level. "Name's Logan," he said. "I don't cut anything at night. Who are you?" "I'm Era," said the first. She nodded to her brother. "This is Talon. We're of the Sierra." A beat. "We are small, but our need is not." Talon swallowed hard, finding his courage like a spark under wet bark. "Our mother sent us to ask for help. The river is flood high, and the crossing stones are gone. We have to reach the other bank before dawn, or our people." He glanced toward the tree line, throat working. "Our people will be taken." Logan followed the boy's gaze. Deep in the woods, something hummed, not mechanical, but organized, like insects marching in rows. "Taken by who?" "The Covenant," Erie whispered. She flinched, as if speaking the name might summon it. "They harvest our singers. They say our voices bend metal. They will make them sing the sky to war." Logan's jaw tightened. He'd heard rumors of a rogue human cell using frontier moons as resource pits. On other jobs, he'd reported anomalies to the colonial network and been told to keep his blade straight and mind his contracts. It was easier to be useful when you cut clean lines and kept your conscience simple. "Why me?" he asked quietly. "Because we watched," Talon said. "You move the iron trees, but you never take the nurse vines. You apologize to the sap when it spills. You fixed the ground bird's broken wing. You were kind when no one was looking." The big man looked at his hands and said nothing for a long beat. Somewhere overhead, a transport lanced the sky, too quiet, too fast. He looked back at the twins. Their fingers had laced together so tightly they seemed like one being split in two. "I don't know your laws," he said, "but I know what standing by feels like, and I hate it." He rose and jerked his chin toward the worker shack. "Get in the light. Tell me the rest." Inside was clean and spare. A cot, a table, a kettle, a holomap that barely held a charge. He warmed tea and listened. The Sierra lived in river groves north of the logging grid. The flood had shorn their crossings away, isolating nests on either bank. Scouts reported. Covenant drones shelling the South Bend reeds at dusk. The start of a sweep that would reach the Heart Grove by morning. The north nests had a chance to vanish into the marsh, but only if someone ferried the elders across the flood now, while the drones recalibrated. The twins had run 2 hours through wet fern to find the only human they dared ask. "Why not ask the Colonial Rangers?" Logan said. Aries' mouth pulled tight. "The Rangers are slow. Forms first. Lives later." Logan thought of the upload speeds in this back quadrant and grimaced. "Fair." He tapped the map. The river glowed a silver artery choked in the middle, where a fallen trunk had once bridged both banks. Sensors showed the current running high and angry, sluicing around boulders like teeth. "I've got cables, flood anchors, a winch, and a loader that can keep its feet," he said. "But if drones sweep, they'll see the thermal." "They see everything," Talon said, voice small. "Not quite," Logan opened the locker and pulled out a tarp of woven leaves. Locals called it veilcloth. The logging union had bought a roll for wildlife mitigation. It scattered heat signatures into 100 harmless blurs. He tossed it over the twins. They vanished into dappled shadow. Talon squeaked. Eerie giggled despite herself. "We can drag that over the loader's cab," Logan said. "With river spray, it might cut our profile enough to pass for weather. Will you help?" Eerie asked. Logan met her gaze. Out in the dark, that humming deepened, the organized sound of something that believed its own story too much. He thought of every time he had told himself he was only one man with one job and a limited remit. Of every small kindness he had tucked away like a secret snack because he couldn't afford large ones. He thought of the twins saying you apologize to the sap when it spills. The world notices the way you break things. "Yes," he said simply. "We'll get your people across." The twins sagged in relief so profound it hurt to watch. "Thank you," Talon whispered. "Thank you, Giant Logan." He buttoned a coat around Eerie and slung a coil of line over his shoulder. "We roll in 5. Grab what you need." They moved like a crew that had known each other longer than an hour. Eerie carried the lantern and did not stumble. Talon learned knots fast, his small hands mirroring Logan's big ones exactly. Logan draped the veilcloth over the loader's frame, secured it with hooks, and mounted the flood anchors to the chassis. He filled the cab's second seat with blankets and strapped the emergency kit to the back. Night closed in. The purple of evening faded to ink. The forest changed shape in the dark, trunks becoming pillars, ferns becoming galleries, the river ahead a long, pale scar. "Listen," Eerie said, chin lifted. Logan heard it then, a high layered chorus riding the wind. Not drones, voices. The elders, Talon breathed. They sing to keep courage from breaking. The loader crawled out of the trees and onto the floodplain. Water ran silver black, littered with driftwood and the bones of uprooted plants. Across the river, faint bioluminescent threads traced nests tucked low in the reeds. Cirra huddled together like stars fallen into grass. On this side, silhouettes shifted elder forms waiting among the roots, trusting a plan that had stepped out of the dark with a human's hands. Logan killed his running lights and eased forward until the loader's front wheels kissed current. It shoved back hard. He set the anchors, ran a hawser to a deadman log, and checked the line twice. "Okay," he said. "We angle downstream. Let the current swing us broadside, then winch across. We ferry in 3s. No one moves unless I say. You two, stay low in the cab and keep watch for." The forest hissed. A streak of cold blue lit the canopy and burned itself into the river, steam leaping. Drums. The loader's hull pinned with the soft, cruel sounds of scanners skating its surface. Eerie grabbed Logan's sleeve. "They're early, or faster," he said. Talon's throat worked. "We should hide." Logan considered it. He looked at the elders on the bank. Their eyes lifted toward him like a prayer held between teeth. The song across the river wavered. He thought of what small people ask of big ones. Not miracles, not heroics. Just to not make us sorry, we hoped. He twisted the winch control. The cable sang. The loader's engine rumbled like an animal settling to protect its young. Water climbed the tires, cold and relentless. The veilcloth streamed behind them, a ghost of leaves and rain. Blue light lanced again, closer. The scanners hesitated, confused by scatter and spray, and slid on. For a heartbeat, they had the river to themselves. "Go," Logan said, voice steady as bedrock. "We go now." The loader thrust into the current and turned, exactly as planned, nose swinging toward the opposite bank. The line creaked. The winch pulled. The river shoved back with the patience of gravity. Halfway across, the sky changed. Not thunder. A ship. Sleek, silent, angling low with a predator's certainty. Logan saw the insignia stenciled on its belly, a broken spiral. Eerie's fingers dug into his coat. Covenant. On both banks, the songs faltered. In the loader's mirrors, the elders on the near side pressed closer to the water's edge, eyes wide. Across the river, tiny lights went dark as nests tucked in. The ship's bay doors opened like a mouth. Logan set his feet, braced his hands, and pushed the throttle into the river's teeth. "Hold on," he said. "Whatever happens, you hold on." The blue light found them. The winch screamed. And the river, which had no interest in prophecy, surged to choose a side. The winch screamed like a frightened animal and then steadied, cable thrumming as the loader fought the current. Spray hammered the veil cloth into a ghostly banner over the cab. Logan braced the throttle with his knee, one hand on the wheel, the other feeding line in short bursts so the river's shove didn't snap it. Beside him, Erie and Talon crouched low, fingers laced, eyes bright and unblinking. Blue searchlights skated past, missed, came back. "Hold your breath," Logan said softly. "Not lungs heat. Think cold." Talon tried, cheeks puffing, eyes crossing. Erie placed her hand on her brother's chest and hummed a thin note that sank through skin to bone. The boys stilled, heat signature dropping by a whisper. The search beam drifted on, baffled by spray and scattered readings. Halfway, the loader rolled into a trough, took water up over the steps, and groaned. The cable burned through the fair lead in a ribbon of light. "Talk to her," Erie whispered. Logan didn't laugh. Big machines listen better when you use the right words. He pressed his palm to the dash and spoke low. "You're doing fine. 10 more yards and you can rest. I'll grease your bearings warm. You have my word." The loader's tone eased, a vibration he could feel in his ribs. 10 more yards. 5, 3. They hit the far bank hard, front tires climbing slick mud, the current shouldering hard to flip them. Logan gunned it. The engine snarled, and the loader hauled itself up onto gravel like a beast leaving a river full of teeth. The twins gasped, then laughed once astonishment punching a hole in fear. On the north bank, a cluster of elders waited under the roots of a fallen giant. They were slight, river green, and river strong, hair tangled with reed thread. Their eyes found the twins first, then the human. They didn't run. They held their ground while civility and gratitude climbed through shock. The oldest stepped forward. Her voice flowed like water over stone. "He has come." Erie sprang from the cab and flung herself into the elder's arms. "Grandsinger, we found the giant." "Talon?" the elder asked. "Here," he said, and bowed awkward and brave. Blue lanced the sky again. The elder's mouth tightened. Time seemed short. Logan jumped down, boots sinking to the ankle. "We can ferry 6 at a time if they keep low." "Elders first. You risk your life for a people not your own," the elder said. Logan pulled the anchor pin, hands steady. "You asked." She studied him for a breath that felt like a ritual. "Names carry rivers," she said, and touched 2 fingers to his brow. "Logan Ward, if we live, the current will remember yours." He didn't know what to do with that, so he nodded once and started working. They became a machine with many hands. Talon learned to clip safety lines the right way on the first try. Erie moved where she was needed, ferrying the smallest from root to cab with a tenderness that made Logan's throat ache. The elders moved with an economy born of flood life. 3 into the cab. 3 into the rear cradle. Veilcloth tucked. Low, lower. Breath like water. Logan checked every knot twice and then again. He launched them back into the teeth of it. The drones adjusted searchlights, sweeping in patterns that made human eyes water. "They're learning us." Nora, no. Not Nora. That was a ghost from a story Logan had heard once in a bunkhouse. He shook his head. This was his story. His river. His choice. "I'll sing," Erie said, and before he could ask what that meant, she began. The song was narrow and high, composed of threads the human ear could barely catch. It braided with the slap of water, the groan of cable, the hiss of spray tucking itself into the loader's noise like a cunning fish tucks under a log. The searchlights wandered. For 10 heartbeats, they forgot the shape they hunted. They made the second crossing, then the third. On the fourth, a drone finally saw through everything. It snapped its beam to pin them, a ruthless, precise blue, and the loader jolted as if shame had weight. "Down!" Logan barked. He cut throttle, letting the river take their broadside and present the veilcloth to the beam. He heard the drone's logic stutter heat scatter. Water prism, then commit. The beam brightened. Talon's courage cracked. "They'll take us. Not if we change the question." Logan jammed his boot under the dashboard, popped a maintenance panel, and hauled out 2 squat metal cans stenciled in hazard stripes. Pitch flares. For night cutting, he ripped the caps, thumbed the strikers, and lobbed both into the flood 50 meters upstream. They blossomed into boiling constellations that the search beam couldn't resist. Hotter, brighter, wronger than a camouflage loader. The drone swiveled. The beam chased, fixed, fired. The river exploded into steam and tar smoke. Logs rode the boil like crocodiles. "Go," Logan whispered, and the loader went. They ferried again. And again. With each crossing, the elder cluster on the north bank swelled. The south bank thinned, and Logan's arm shook a little more. The cable had cut a groove through the fairlead. His gloves were wet, his boots salted white with dried fear. The twins did not waver. When Aries' voice frayed, Talon took the line of song and carried it, eyes shut, hands steadying the elder beside him. Once, when a child cried, Logan handed the kid his last cinnamon protein chew. The child went quiet, eyes huge, chewing like worship. When they had moved nearly everyone, the Covenant ship shifted tactics. The bay doors disgorged a net filament fine as mist, sparkling with charged dust. It wasn't meant to entangle bodies. It was meant to sheath a shape and make it bright for weapons that preferred certainty. "It will mark the loader," Aries said, voice flat with the terror of understanding. Logan squinted up. The net wafted toward them with terrible grace, drifting to settle over machine and human like a wedding veil made by an enemy. "Cut?" Talon's hand hovered over the utility knife on Logan's belt. "Cutting completes the circuit," Logan said. "The charge bites when you fight it." "Then what?" Aries whispered. He looked at the river, at the remaining elders, 5 of them, all bones and will waiting under roots. At the twins who had decided a giant human could be trusted during the worst night of their lives. He thought about the kind of help that breaks a world and the kind that holds it together. "Give me rope," he said. They gave him rope. He tied the loader to a massive dead man embedded in the north bank. He backed down the gravel until the cable ran taut. He checked knots with hands that had built cabins and bridges and small kindnesses. He looked at Erie and Talon, and then at the elders across the flood. "Last run," he said. "You 2 stay here." "We go with you," Talon protested. "You stay," Logan said, and put a hand on each small head. "Your mother asked for help. You brought it. Now you keep it from dying." The net drifted lower, lazy as doom. Logan threw the loader into gear and aimed not for the river's skin, but its muscle. He plunged for the fastest water, where the current rose to meet him like an equal. Spray hammered the cab. The veil cloth streamed out behind like a comet tail. The net followed, sinking slower than speed, inches of distance turning into seconds of grace. He reached midstream center of the river's thinking and yanked the release on his flood anchors. 2 steel claws dropped, dragged, and bit deep. The loader jerked, spun, and wedged broadside against a submerged boulder, presenting the smallest possible silhouette to the sky and the biggest possible body to the net. The net fell, kissed the loader, and slid off its charge, leaping to the river's skin instead of the machine's bones. The water flashed white, then black. Fish flipped downstream like silver punctuation. Logan grinned without humor. Not today. He kicked the anchors free, let the river swing him toward the south bank, and winched across the last 30 feet like a man hauling himself hand over hand back into a body. The elders clambered aboard without sound, mouths set in lines that had seen too much water and too many nights like this in memory's long song. One took Logan's wrist, squeezed once. The return felt impossible. It happened anyway. They burst onto the north bank with the last of the Sierra. The elder with river pebble eyes lifted her hands, and for the first time all night, the song changed. It was not a courage song now. It was a wordless thing made of thanks and relief and the knowledge of how close a world had come to breaking. Erie folded into Logan's side, shaking. Talon pressed his face into the big man's coat and stayed there. Above them, the Covenant ship banked for a final pass. "Undercover!" Logan shouted, shoving them toward the root tangle. The blue beam gathered brighter than before, hungry to make a lesson. And then the forest answered. Spears of pale fire lanced out from the far ridgeline, so fast they tore the air. The Covenant ship shuddered, listed, and fled to altitude trailing bright asterisms. In the sudden quiet, boots thudded on wet soil. Figures strode from the night tall, armored in woven bark and river metal, eyes silver in the dark. Their leader's helm unfolded like a flower and revealed a face carved by weather and patience. She looked at the twins first. "Eerie, Talon." Her voice was the river after flood. "Your message reached us." Then she turned to the human who had bulked himself into the shape of a bridge all night because two small people had asked. "You stood between hunters and our singers," she said. "By our law, that makes you under our shield." Logan blinked up at the line of warriors materializing through mist and dawn breath and the steam of a punished river. "Who?" he asked, because the night had been very long and he needed a shape to put this into. "Are you?" The warrior bowed with her eyes. "We are the Grove Guard," she said. "And by sunrise, the Covenant will learn that a world is not a thing you take." Behind her, more lights kindled among the trees, dozens, then scores like stars stepping down to the ground. The twins tightened their grip on Logan's coat. "Stay with us," Ira whispered. "Please." He rose, every muscle answering with a tally of what it had spent, and nodded once. "Until it's done," he said. From the east, dawn began to lace the fog with gold. From above, a new, heavier rumble gathered more ships, angling in. The Grove Guard lifted their spears. The river chose its side again. The light that followed the storm looked fragile at first, then gold, spilling over the river's wrecked skin. Smoke rose in ribbons from the trees, mingling with fog that smelled of wet metal and scorched sap. Logan Ward stood at the edge of the flood, sleeves rolled up, steam curling from his coat. His muscles ached from holding too much. A machine against a river against the stars, a promise against fear. The twins didn't leave his side. Erie's hand clung to his tiny fingers wrapped around his thumb. Talon stayed quiet, but his eyes followed the horizon, waiting for the next danger like someone born under alarms. Across the bank, the Grove Guard moved with impossible precision, an army made of wind and root, each armored in woven bark threaded with silver veins. Their leader, Captain Lysara, stood among them like a trunk among branches. Her hair gleamed the color of dusk steel, her gaze fixed upward. More engines growled overhead. Covenant reinforcements, 3 carriers, low orbit. "Can your people fight that?" Logan asked. Lysara didn't look at him. "We do not fight. We end." She raised one hand and the Grove Guard knelt. The ground beneath them shimmered. The river's reflection warped, then shattered into light. Dozens of glowing shapes surged from the water-slender constructs, shaped like fish and roots, part organic, part metal. They hummed with the same rhythm as the twin songs. Logan stared. "You've got drones?" "Not drones," Lysara said. "Echoes of the river, made from its memory." Talon gasped softly. "The old songs are real." Lysara's gaze softened for just a moment. They always were. The sky opened again. The Covenant carriers descended through cloud, their bay doors glowing, their blue insignias sharp as blades. Logan felt the vibration in his ribs. "They'll glass this whole valley," he muttered. "They will try," Lysara said. "But today, the river has a voice." She looked at the twins. "Erie, Talon, you sang courage into the water. Will you sing again?" Erie hesitated, then straightened. "For the mothers who couldn't run," Talon swallowed, eyes bright. "For the ones who couldn't hide." Logan looked down at them, feeling something heavy and simple rise in his chest. He knelt beside them. "For what it's worth," he said, "I'm proud of you both." Irie's chin trembled, but she smiled. Lysara stepped forward, placing a hand over their hearts. "Then sing." The twins lifted their voices. It wasn't loud more, like the shimmer of rain before it falls, but it traveled through everything. The Grove Guard echoed it in deep harmonies. The river answered with flashes of light as its metal fish rose, forming spirals in the air. The Covenant ships opened fire. Energy bolts slammed into invisible resistance. The air shook but didn't burn. Every beam that touched the river's mist bent away, deflected by something older than tech. The song thickened, a weave of voices and current. The metal fish darted upward, splitting into dozens of streaking flares. They struck the carrier's hulls, not explosions, but echoes frequencies that scrambled targeting arrays and fried comms. Logan felt the hum in his bones, a rhythm between heartbeat and thunder. They're jamming them, he realized aloud. You're using resonant sonic interference. Lasara nodded once. Learned from the humans who hunted us. Above them, one carrier veered, engines coughing sparks. Another drifted sideways, sensors blind. The third fired one last barrage before its systems failed, and the ship limped toward orbit, trailing blue fire. The Grove Guard's song softened, becoming almost tender. The fish dissolved into the river like foam. The twins' voices cracked with exhaustion. Logan helped them sit under a tree. Easy, you did enough. Talon's voice was small. Did we win? No one wins a flood, Logan said. But we built a bridge. Later, when the sun was fully risen and the air smelled of wet earth and ozone, Bizarra approached Logan where he crouched beside the loader. He was patching a torn hydraulic line with strips of foil and prayer. You could have left, she said. He tightened the clamp and tested it. Could have, he agreed. But someone had to keep the song from going flat. She studied him for a long time. You are not like the others. Plenty of us would have done the same, he said. You just don't hear about the quiet ones. She smiled faintly. Then perhaps it is time someone did. Behind them, the Sierra people emerged from the trees, families, elders, children blinking in the dawn. Some carried instruments made of reeds and bone. Others bore nothing but each other. They bowed to Logan, to the twins, to the river that had spared them. The Grand Singer stepped forward. The Covenant will return, stronger. But now we know they can bleed. They'll come for me too, Logan said. Humans don't like stories where the villain looks familiar. Lysara's gaze was steady. Then stay with us. Help us learn your ways, as we teach you ours. He thought of the loader's hum, the feel of rope and steel under his hands, and the twins' small voices singing the sky open. He nodded once. I'll stay a while. Talon looked up, startled and hopeful. You mean it? Someone's got to teach your people how to fix a cracked piston, Logan said, smiling. And maybe you can teach me how to make rivers sing. By noon, the Grove Guard had vanished into the trees, leaving only trails of silver moss where they'd walked. The Sierra began rebuilding their bridges, simple rafts of hollow trunks lashed together with vine. Logan showed them how to brace the lines against current. Erie carried messages between nests, humming under her breath. Talon learned to splice rope. Peace, thin but real, settled like dust. And yet, when the wind shifted, Logan felt something colder beyond the horizon, a pulse of engines he knew too well. That night, as he stood guard beside the campfire, the loader's comm unit crackled to life for the first time since the fight. Static, then a voice. Human, female, formal. Logan Ward, it said. This is Colonial Command. You are to report your position and explain your involvement in the unsanctioned engagement on Verdun 3. You, and considered compromised. He closed his eyes, head tipping back toward the stars. Of course, he muttered. They couldn't just let it be a good day. Ari and Talon stirred from their sleeping mats, blinking up at him. What is it? Talon asked. Trouble, Logan said. The kind that wears my language. The voice on the radio repeated, colder. Logan Ward, respond immediately. Failure to comply will be treated as desertion. He turned off the comm, the click loud in the quiet. Are they coming? Erie whispered. He looked out at the river, its surface reflecting stars like small promises. Maybe, he said. But they'll have to get through a world that learned how to sing. Behind him, the twins began to hum a low, stubborn tune of defiance and belonging. The forest listened. The river joined. And high above, in orbit's thin blue light, unseen ships changed course toward Verdun 3. The night deepened into the kind of silence that comes only after battle, heavy, watchful and full of the things no one dares to say out loud. Logan Ward sat by the river, watching embers drift skyward like tiny worlds leaving home. The twins were asleep near the loader, curled beneath a tarpaulin of veilcloth that shimmered faintly with every breath. Across the floodplain, the Sierra worked under starlight, repairing nests and binding wounded roots. The river had quieted, but its new shape, wider, rougher, stronger, reminded everyone that peace like water was never still for long. Ash from the Covenant ship's engines still clung to the leaves. Logan rubbed the calluses of his palms, the way a soldier checks his scars. He had built bridges, fought storms, and ferried an entire people across their own extinction. And yet, the sound of that voice from orbit wouldn't leave him. Compromised. Desertion. He'd heard those words before, in other sectors, from other men who thought order was a synonym for obedience. A soft sound, the scrape of reed against stone, made him turn. Lysara, the Grove Guard captain, stepped from the trees. Her armor had been set aside for bark-woven robes that glowed faintly green. In her hands, she carried a long instrument of bone and metal, a lyre forged from a drone's broken frame. "You're not sleeping," she said. "Didn't know I was supposed to," he replied. "You should. Even rivers rest when they can." She sat beside him. The instrument hummed at her touch, strings resonating with the night wind. The Covenant will return. The question is not if, but what they expect to find. Logan poked the fire with a branch. "They'll find me." "That's the problem." Lysara tilted her head. "You think you're their enemy? I think I'm proof they made one." She studied him. "You could run. Leave this moon. The river will forget your footsteps, but it will remember your kindness." Logan shook his head. "If I run, they'll just come back harder. You can't fight something that thinks it's saving you. You've got to show it what saving really means." Lysara strummed a low chord. "Then you will need more than strength. You will need the song. The twins' trick?" Her eyes softened. "Not trick, truth. The song of resonance. It carries the pattern of the Sarah's life, their voice in the bones of the world. When the Covenant learned of it, they tried to turn it into a weapon. When you helped the twins, you changed the meaning of that song. I just crossed a river," he said. "You crossed a boundary older than stars." Dawn crept in pale and slow. The twins woke, blinking at the mist. Eerie ran to Lysara and pressed her face against the captain's arm. "Is it over?" "For a moment," Lysara said. "But a moment can be enough." Talon stared up at the sky. "He'll leave, won't he?" Logan crouched beside them. "Not yet, little man. Still got work." "What kind of work?" Eri asked. "The kind that keeps you singing." Before anyone could answer, the loader's cum crackled again. This time not with command tones, but with static laced by a second frequency. Logan frowned and adjusted the dial. A new voice broke through, older, rougher, but somehow familiar. "Ward, it's Commander Reyes. You're in deep trouble, son." Logan exhaled through his nose. "Good morning to you too, sir." "I'm not your sir anymore. Colonial Council voted to disavow you. They think you've gone native." Lysara's eyes narrowed. "Native? Means human bureaucrats have smaller vocabularies than hearts," Logan muttered. Then, louder, "You could have just let me disappear, Reyes. Why warn me?" "Because I owe you," the commander said. "And because the Covenant fleet has reinforcements inbound. They're not coming to erase the Sierra. They're coming to claim them. Seems someone high up decided that a race with a weaponized song might be worth owning." Lysara's hand tightened around the lyre. "The lyre. We are not theirs to claim." "I know that," Reyes said. "But I'm one voice in a room full of men who don't listen. You've got 12 hours before his cruiser hits atmosphere. Get your people underground." The signal cut. The loader's hum filled the silence. By mid-morning, the valley was a fever of preparation. Grove Guard runners carried word through the marshes. The Sierra dismantled their nests, carrying what they could into the deeper forests. Lysara's warriors set new wards of sound, not walls, but mirrors, designed to confuse incoming scans. Logan worked beside them, rewiring the loader into a mobile generator. The twins fetched tools and sang under their breath, coaxing the machine systems into harmony with the river's pulse. When the first Covenant scout ship broke through the clouds, it found only fog and echoes. "Phase 2, Lysara ordered. The Grove Guard began their retreat, not panic, but orchestration. Each motion was a note. Each group's movement formed a chord. The entire forest became an instrument of deception. Logan had seen armies move before, but never like this. A symphony of intent, no wasted motion, no raised voices. He loaded the last of the tools onto the loader and looked to Lysara. "We can hold them off a little, buy you time." She shook her head. They will follow the voice that defied them. You are the signal now, Logan Ward. He almost smiled. I've been called worse. The sky flared blue again, the color of Covenant fire. Ships dropped through the atmosphere, sleek and cruel, their wings cutting the clouds like blades. Positions, Lysara called. Remember the rhythm. Let the river lead. The twins took shelter under the loader. Logan climbed onto its roof, rifle slung across his back, cable gun in hand. The first wave of drones poured from the ships, a rain of chrome and static. He fired the cable gun, catching one midder, yanking it down into the mud. Talon, pulse it. The boy pressed his small palm against the loader's frame and hummed a sharp note. The drone convulsed, systems shorting out. That's my boy, Logan said. Again. The sky became a storm of motion. Lysara's warriors wove through the trees, spears flashing, their sonic wards bouncing the drone signals back into confusion. The Syrah's song rippled through the forest, now no longer defense but defiance. For every drone that fell, 2 more descended. The loader's panels glowed white-hot. Logan braced for another shot when the cum on his wrist flared to life again. But this time, it wasn't Reyes. It was a child's voice. Human giant. This is not the end. Logan froze. The twins looked up from under the loader. Neither had spoken. The voice came again, softer now, threaded with static but full of emotion. I am the river's memory. You saved me once. Let me return the debt. The river behind him surged. The water rose higher than wind should allow, curling into the shape of a vast serpent made of silver light. Within it shimmered fragments of the old drones the Grove Guard had repurposed, the echoes. The water creature bent its luminous head toward Logan. Direct me, it said. He stared for half a second, then pointed toward the sky. Then sing loud. The serpent launched upward. It struck the lead Covenant cruiser, folding around its hull like a tidal hand. Energy weapons fired, but the water absorbed them, turning light to steam. Within seconds, the ship's engine stuttered and went dark. Impossible, Lysara whispered. Not impossible, Logan said. Just human enough to try. The serpent released the ship and turned its gaze toward the remaining 2 cruisers. One tried to flee. The other fired until its guns melted. Both fell silent beneath the storm. When the echoes faded, the valley was quiet again. Not peaceful, but emptied of threat. The river settled back into itself, leaving only ripples that glowed faintly under the dawn. Erie's voice broke the stillness. It's over? Logan exhaled slowly. No, but it's beginning to mean something. He looked at Lysara. You've got a world to rebuild. I've got one to answer for. She studied him, eyes full of both sorrow and respect. Where will you go? He smiled faintly. Wherever they don't want me to. The twins clung to his coat, tears wetting the fabric. Come back? Talon asked. If I can, Logan said. He pressed a hand to each of their hearts. Keep singing. Don't stop for anyone. Then he climbed into the loader, turned the ignition, and watched the forest fade in his mirrors. Behind him, the Syrah began their new song, one made not of fear, but of faith. Ahead, the cum flickered to life again, a single message from orbit. Ward, you've made history. Now let's see if it forgives you. Logan smiled into the sunrise. It never does. He shifted gears. The loader rolled toward the horizon. The road to the uplands was little more than a scar cut through silver grass. Logan Ward's loader moved along it like a ghost of old Earth's lumber rigs, steam hissing from its patched pipes. The morning light painted the horizon amber, washing the river valley behind him in peace he no longer trusted to last. Each mile carried him closer to the orbit elevator that rose from Verdun 3's equator, a thin thread of human ambition stabbing skyward. It also carried him back toward judgment. He'd saved a people, defied a fleet, and turned an alien song into a weapon of mercy. Now the same men who once called him foreman would call him traitor. But as the loader's cabin shuddered with each incline, the memory of the twins' voices clung to him like music that refused to fade. When the cum pinged, he almost ignored it. Then a familiar voice crackled through. Ward, Commander Reyes again. You heading for the tether? More or less, Logan said. Good. Colonial councils convened up here. They're arguing whether to put you on trial or in a museum. Logan chuckled without humor. Guess I'm history either way. Reyes sighed. Listen, son. They're afraid. The Covenant fleet's in retreat, but they're calling you a variable, a symbol they didn't plan for. Bring yourself in. Let me try to talk sense into them. Can't promise I'll behave, Logan said. Never could, Reyes muttered. Just get here in one piece. The elevator base loomed by afternoon, a cluster of steel domes ringed by fences and gun towers. When the loader rolled through the checkpoint, armed sentries flanked it. One recognized him and whispered something that made the others stare. Inside, the air smelled of ozone and politics. A tribunal table waited beneath banners that still bore scorch marks from the Covenant siege. Behind it sat 3 counselors and Commander Reyes. Logan stood tall, his jacket stained with river silt and alien sap. Counselor Hale, the same bureaucrat who'd once cut funding for frontier safety nets, spoke first. You violated multiple containment protocols, consorted with non-human insurgents, and transmitted unapproved data through military frequencies. Do you deny it? No, Logan said. But you left something out. Hale's brow furrowed. What? I also stopped a massacre. A murmur rippled through the room. Reyes hid a smile behind his hand. Counselor Nandari leaned forward. You exposed us to cultural contamination. Those creatures, they have names, Logan interrupted. Sira, Grove Guard. People who bleed, breathe, and sing better than we listen. You taught them human tech, Nandari snapped. That song of theirs disrupted half a fleet. Logan nodded. And saved half a planet. You build machines to cut. I taught one to heal. For a moment, the chamber went still. The hum of the tether cable miles above, connecting ground to orbit, filled the silence like a heartbeat. Reyes finally spoke. Counselors, we called him here to understand what happened, not bury him in charges. The AI cores in those Covenant ships recorded something unprecedented. Resonance patterns that mirror human emotion. Whatever the Sira did, it rewrote their targeting logic. Ward's actions may have created the first cross-species defense protocol that feels. Hawley frowned. You're saying empathy became a weapon. I'm saying it became a shield, Reyes said. Logan met their eyes, one by one. You build colonies on the idea that humanity meant ownership. Out there, I learned it means stewardship. You can punish me, or you can learn what the river tried to teach us. No one spoke for a long time. Then Counselor Hawley closed his datapad. This council will deliberate. Guards escorted Logan to a holding wing that looked more like a chapel than a cell. It had a single window that opened to the stars. Through it, he saw faint lights glimmer across the valley, the Sira rebuilding their bridges, the Grove Guard signal fires burning like constellations below the clouds. He smiled faintly. Still singing, he thought. Hours later, Reyes entered alone. They're not going to jail you, he said. Too risky for morale. They're assigning you instead. Assigning me to what? Reyes handed him a small crystal device, the kind used for first contact projects. They want you to lead a new mission. Liaison to the Sira. Build bridges, share tech, make sure no one else decides empathy is dangerous. Logan blinked. You're serious. As a decompression breach. You're the only man they trust to talk to a world they don't understand. He turned the crystal over in his palm. Guess that makes me the first ambassador with mud on his boots. Reyes grinned. Wouldn't have it any other way. Weeks later, a transport descended to the river valley. The loader waited by the shore, newly refitted with alien silver plating that shimmered like water. The twins were there, taller now by inches, but with the same wide eyes. Lazara stood behind them, her armor polished to mirror the sunrise. When Logan stepped off the ramp, Ari ran forward first. You came back. Told you I would, he said, kneeling to hug them both. Had to see if you kept singing. We never stopped, Talon said proudly. The song is bigger now. It carries through the stars, he smiled. Then maybe humanity's finally learning harmony. Lazara approached, extending a hand. The river remembers you, Logan Ward. It also remembers those who followed you here. They wish to speak. He turned toward the water. The surface rippled, glowing faintly blue. The reflection that looked back was not his own. It was the river's memory. the shimmering intelligence he'd met in battle. "Human giant," it said, voice both child and current. "You once bridged fear with courage. Now we ask you to bridge worlds." He nodded. "I'll try. Trying is enough." The reflection faded, leaving only starlight trembling on the current. That night, the humans and Sarah shared their first true council beside the river, songs mixed with stories. The Grove Guard learned laughter, human engineers learned patience. And somewhere above them, the orbit elevator's lights blinked in rhythm with the waves below, as if the whole planet had begun to breathe together. When the fire burned low, Logan looked up at the sky and whispered, "Guess we changed the world after all." Erie smiled sleepily beside him. "You didn't change it," she said. "You reminded it to be kind." Epilogue: The Accord of Rivers. Months later, every ship in colonial space carried a small plaque at its helm. Empathy is not a risk. It is the bridge that endures. Some said the phrase came from an alien hymn. Others said it came from a giant human who listened when two small voices asked for help. No one ever agreed on which version was truer. But both were sung whenever a storm broke and someone reached out their hand. If this story touched you, if you believe kindness can rewrite the stars, subscribe now for more HFY tales of courage, empathy, and hope among alien worlds. Every click keeps these human stories alive across the galaxy.